Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Annie tōku ingo no Aotearoa hau. So I am representing Kiwi in this little webinar.
And I'm assuming Annie just introed there herself, where she's from. I'm Ryan. I'll be representing and looking at the Australian side of things when it comes to teaching humanities. And we're going to run you through a few of the parts that might help you get started here in EP. But before we jump into the platform, maybe a little bit more about ourselves. Annie, I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Ryan. I am a New Zealand teacher of 20 years experience, and I've been working with Education Perfect for the last 3 years. I used EP in my teaching and I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't go back to teaching without it. How about you, Ryan?
Awesome. I don't have as much experience as Annie, but was teaching for around 7 years. I came to teaching a little bit later in my career, and EP was an essential tool for me, along with a lot of other bits and pieces, tech related, to connect students. Best thing about it for me, which we'll take a look at here, is just how it helps you to keep on top of where your students are and seeing what's visible there. So we're going to dive in and take a look at some different features around the platform. And again, this is a beginner session. We have some intermediate and expert sessions that will be coming up in time as well. But for now, we're going to be focusing on this if you are relatively new to EP. So let's jump on in. I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to share the window that I want to, which is the EP platform itself. And I think it's going to land us straight into Discover. Yes. Can you see that from your side there, Annie?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And isn't the artwork amazing? I love it.
Yeah, it looks great. It looks great. I'll come back to our homepage now. I am in a demonstration class here. I would absolutely recommend this to my colleagues. I'm in a demonstration class or demonstration school here, which is why I have some bizarrely named classes in front of me, but we'll step through our classes. Just to imagine here, these were a more standard kind of issue of humanities classes that you were looking at. Should we jump into Discover first, Annie? Should we look through the New Zealand perspective on things to begin with?
That sounds good. So we'll need to show how to find your curriculum, which is probably the first step. Click on the first button and scroll through. New Zealand curriculum, not the 2025, that is the maths and English.
Yes, so that's probably a good time to point out the reason we have some different labeled curriculums for different years is, as you would know, these curriculums get updated. So whilst we have updated curriculums that go through from our relative departments of education, we ourselves will come back through, update our resources, realign with those curriculums. Our aim is to always have our library up to date before that curriculum becomes mandated, so that can help you with your planning and everything that's there. But now, obviously, not looking at Arabic today, are we, Annie?
No, and in New Zealand, it's called social sciences.
Okay, so we'll come on down to social sciences.
As part of the humanities. And there you can see we've got year 4 to 6, culture and identity. Crossing the Pacific, the Aotearoa New Zealand histories is incorporated throughout. If we want to jump in the top there and go to years 7, 8.
I actually really want to go back and jump into those now because I haven't seen them before and there's a lot to dig into and I'm just interested, but I'll have to keep myself focused on task here.
Yeah, let's focus. In culture and identity, the first topic, we want to have a look at belonging in Aotearoa. You can see on the high level it's got 8 activities. And we're going to have a wee look at the Chinese New Zealanders lesson today.
Coming to this one here. So our topics are ways of organising the different resources that might relate to that topic. And when we come on in here with our Discover view, we can also see any of our curriculum aligned outcomes, brief description, and we're going to continue to add and expand on this as we go through this year and next year, so it will continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see we have on the left-hand side an I yellow in the circle. That's the introduction section, and I stands for information. So we have a couple of information sections with the learning objectives and the amazing glossary, which is so fantastic to start off with. And even some background if we feel we need some background. The descriptions there are for technical words or words that the students might not be up to. And they're really helpful for teachers as well as students. And
Bit
then
of
we go in,
interactivity there. It's awesome.
yeah, interactivity. Then we go into some purple section for short answers that checks the students' learning so far. What do they remember? How are they going through those sections? And then a short writing section is the light blue one, where the students can check their own answers, but the teachers can check them as well if they want to have a look and see what the students are writing. And then, along with our pedagogy of scaffolding for students, we go into another information section and then some more knowledge checks to see if they are retaining the information. So it's not a big block at once, it's split up into little pieces that help the students learn. Also, this Chinese New Zealanders is written in conjunction with Chinese New Zealand Association, and that is one of the things that we do in Education Perfect. We collaborate with other people who are knowledgeable, and we have permission from them. So anything that you see on Education Perfect, you can absolutely share. It's not hidden, and we have permission to use it. So that gives you the confidence to use all of our content.
Brilliant. Yeah, we need that. It's the thing, you're relying on your resources as a teacher. You have your area of expertise, but we want to make sure we're putting in relevant content to the students. Two quick clarifications. One, the check answer button only appears here because we're viewing this as a teacher. On the student side of things, there's not a big check answer button for them. They'll submit their answer, they'll get the feedback and be able to see it, but there won't just be an opt-out of answering this question button that's there. The other thing to keep in mind is the reason we've structured the lesson this way is, as we'll take a look at the end of the session, you'll get a full report on what the interaction has been like with the student with this lesson. So these sections help you to sort of communicate where the student is in this activity. And then for any of our closed questions, you'll be able to see each of the different attempts they have. If they've had to have a few goes at getting a question correct. And for our open-ended feedback questions, if you're on a sort of base platform, then you're going to be able to see any of the responses they put forward, offer some feedback in return. If you're one of the subscribers to our new tool that we have this year, then the students will also get AI feedback around this, and that can help enhance their answers a lot more. But that's something we'll maybe take a look at in one of our later webinars.
I could look at it now if you like. If we jump into back to the year 9 and 10 area and look at the Anzac lesson.
Sure thing. Back to Discover, year 9 and 10. I'm going to click on the drop downs. It's remembered my other drop downs, so it's just the other part that I need to adjust here. And direct me through this, Annie. Am I going down?
We're in the culture and identity at the top again, and we want international conflict. Well, we don't want international conflict. We want to look at it. Changing forms of participation was one that I thought was very interesting.
Very timely. As we're recording this, it's a lead up to Anzac Day. So for us, it's going to be very pertinent. Now, to view as a student, if we want to try this out from a student experience, click on the 3 dots next to our assign button. We'll come back to that assign button because that's how we can get this to our students. But if we want to play things from their perspective, we can view this one as a student. That will make the AI active anywhere in the system where it's actually going to be available.
Should we try that first question, understanding involvement?
Yeah, let's just jump on through to that part here.
Yeah. So we've got a pre-prepared answer to type in there. Do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, I can see it off here to the right. So
but he can't copy and paste it, so that's one of the safeguards.
No, I'm going to keep exporting meat, dairy, and wool to play our part in mutual, and then I'm going to type that in with Britain, also known as Britain. Now we're going to go check our answer. We can see there's a little note here for the students to say AI feedback's enabled, and also please don't enter personal information. That's a pretty good practice for students to go with any AI interaction, not just with EP itself, but ours is particularly safe and secure in terms of not communicating that information to the wider world web, but always an important one to help reinforce with our students. So what we've got here, our AI feedbacks come through for our student is a few different layers of feedback that have come in here. first of all, we have our inline feedback. Now, the aim behind the whole AI itself is to reinforce students' help and get them to improve their answer that's there, and making sure they're doing that mental work they need to do in order to learn. That's why we have the open-ended questions. We want them to think. We want to engage their brains a little bit more depth and help consolidate that learning. So our inline feedback here is going to encourage them with things that they've done well. It can also point out things they've done really well. Or in this case, the blue feedback is coding for students. So it's something for them to improve. So there's a positive, but this is definitely an area they could get a little bit better in. In this case, it's pointing out the spelling of friendship. Then on the right-hand side, we've got some personalized feedback that's more aggregated that's here. So again, looking at what's been done well and some ideas to improve for students, breaking those down into some nice clear dot points that are there. And then the final piece here is our star rating. Star rating is not a mark for the student's answer so much as a reflection of how much their answer satisfies the criteria of the question. Now, in the case of something like a describe, that will then essentially need to fulfill all these different elements that we know when we write describe, we're looking for in their type of response. And if they don't quite have that, it won't necessarily make that threshold. If we see a question which has an answer which gets 3 stars, it generally has satisfied the criteria of the question well enough. It's not saying it's a perfect answer. We don't necessarily want our students to settle there, but it does answer the question and reflects the students engaged enough. A 4 and a 5-star answer are going to reflect a much better understanding. But the other thing you'll notice here, we've only got 2 stars and the student isn't able to progress forward yet. This is our learning loop that we have in place to try and encourage students to engage with this feedback that's been provided. So what they'll need to do is go improve my answer. And in this case, we've got 2 stars, so we can just edit and then try and put into play this feedback. Now, for the sake of brevity, we won't try and go and place that feedback for this session, but that is the aim behind the tool. And is there anything you want to add from your side around that AI feedback?
It's been a long road in teaching to try and get students to look at their work and edit it. And this is such a valuable skill that they're learning. And the students love it. They really engage.
Yeah, I think it's what students have resonated with for a long time. And I'm not actually reading this question is, darn, I got it right. It's when, yes, okay, I got it wrong. Students get an immediate feedback with our closed questions to see if they're right, if they're wrong. That helps to reinforce them. If they're on the right track, they're getting the thumbs up and encouragement as they're moving forward. And if they haven't got it right, they get some additional feedback and they can see what the correct answer is, move on, next question, next challenge, and they'll loop them back to that previous question. That feedback loop's been really helpful for keeping students engaged and for rewarding them for completing the lesson. And with the AI feedback in place for this, we're now able to also extend it through to our open-ended sections. And again, try and stimulate more of that mental capacity, that cognitive loading that we want students to do, because if they don't, they won't learn.
And this encourages some learning. Are we going to have a look at some Australian curriculum now?
Yeah, let's jump on into the Australian curriculums because there's lots of different ones to jump through that's there. So again, as we, it's easy to get lost. As we jump around, we can see obviously we have the New Zealand curriculum, and there's essentially a couple of choices there. It's whether it's one of the new updated curriculums or otherwise. But of course, if you're teaching in Australia, then there's multiple different curriculums that we're going to have in place. You might be in Victoria, you might be using the Australian curriculum, you might be in New South Wales. Could be variations. You can scroll through here, see all the different curriculums that we have our content mapped to. You might also be using the IB in some of your subject areas and be able to see what's there. If we filter down on, say, the Australian curriculum, then same sort of tools are in place here, like with the New Zealand curriculums. We can jump to geography, we can jump to history, and we can jump to economics. And we can jump to civics and citizenship. Those are generally the 4 areas that fall in underneath humanities and some of the different names that we have. So if you're teaching, say, commerce in Year 9 and Year 10 in New South Wales, for example, then you'll find that any related resources we have here under economics. And we've got our year groups. Now, as we jump around our different curriculums as well, we'll also change what that filtering looks like. So here, when we go to New South Wales, it's now stage 4, stage 5, instead of the different year groups. And if we jump over to geography, we have the same sort of breakdown that's here and available. So now this is aligned in this case with the New South Wales curriculum. So if we come on into, say, let's go with graphing skills. Graphing skills is going to be something that's going to be common across all of the different curriculums that are there. It's part of what we see across Australia, and I'm sure it integrates into the geography elements inside New Zealand as well.
It does, yes.
And it does? Oh,
yeah.
I like it. Something I miss. I want to go back. I walk around my, side story. I walk around my local neighborhood and I want to figure out, like, why is the wind blowing that way? What's all this construction going to do to the local weather patterns and stuff?
Yeah.
So,
why is the
for
traffic
life.
flowing like this?
Yeah. It's great stuff. It's not enough time to learn everything you want to learn, is there, Annie?
No.
That's a shame. Speaking of time, though, something that we've added in to help save a bit of time. If you're going through exploring the library and you think, that's great, we're going to be doing graphing skills, I want to make sure I've got that somewhere for my students. What I'm going to do is click on this blue button here saying add to class. And I'm trying to remember the class it was. It's this charms class. Let's assume we were including this in term. Actually, no, let's include it in term 2 as well. I'm going to add that in there. And we'll come back and take a look at where that actually drops in our system. But for now, I'll come back, I'll grab one more activity and we'll look at assigning and checking out a report. Let's go Water in the World. Now, the key distinction we have in place for some of our ways we've organized our resources, you'll see here we've got all our Water in the World lessons that are here in place. And if I come on back to Discover, you can see on that line for Water in the World, we've got a glossary list that's separate, and we have assessments as well. So the assessments here include some topic tests for each of those areas. You can include those for your students. So you might want to add that in. And let's assume we're doing Water in the World for term 2. And we'll add the Water in the World lessons in there as well for term 2. And then we'll take a look at where do I keep adding these things to? Because at the moment, it just seems to be disappearing into the magical ether. So we've got a little option. I can click down here on the bottom right-hand side, which is going to take me specifically to our courses page, or I can find my class over here on the left-hand side and go to charms. So these are the same classes where if I come back to our homepage, they're all sitting here on the homepage itself. If I click into charms, that was the one we were just adding things to. And you can see I've got a courses tab here. So the courses has now pulled in what's relevant to me in those spaces. This hasn't assigned it to the students. We'll go and show how we can do that in just a moment. But what it has done is it's organized the resources so that me as the classroom teacher can keep across what do I think is going to be most relevant for my students as we move through our scope and sequence, and what can I issue out to them, and sort of keep a track of what's there. So we'll not only be able to see inside each of these units from this perspective what we've assigned, but we also have the classwork tab, which will show anything that I've assigned to students. So we've got our class here. We can dive in, and that is going to allow us to find our course. The course is where we've just been assigning or putting each of those different topics. Now, again, I should avoid the use of the word assigning because our students don't have this work yet. This is just lining it up so that we have it in a space that's easy to assign to them, to notify them on their side. They've got a classwork to do, and we can also track that from the classwork tab as well and see what's been assigned. So if I come into graphing skills, we want to assign chloropleth maps. In this case, I'm going to click the blue assign button. Basically, you might have noticed as well earlier on in our demonstration, there were spaces where we could assign as well. Where you see that assign button, you'll be taken through to our task assignment flow, which looks like this. The great thing about assigning from our courses page is that it will fill out a lot of this information for you. So if you've assigned it to a course or put it into a course, I've got to stop saying assign to a course. When you've set it in your course, then when you click through to assign it as a task, you'll have it checked already, the class that you want to. The date will be our generic date that we set in place, which is usually 1 day and 1 hour from when you're setting the actual task or activity. Oh, sorry, not 1 day, 1 week from when you've set the task or activity. And then we can come on down here as well. Now, if we do want to cut parts out of our lesson, if we come into our chloropleth maps, we can come in here. There's an option to assign specific sections. And if we want to drop out this extra for experts, for example, we can drop that part out, confirm that through. If you have your AI feedback enabled, like I do in this instance, this is also where we can access some controls for the AI feedback and change how that might interact with students. And we also have the option to set our different learning method. If we want to include what students have previously done, we can select it as learning. If we want to start them from scratch, we'll set that as revision. But most of the time, I'm fairly consistently setting this task. So I essentially click assign, come in, take a quick look at all those dates and things, and I go through to assign. Now I've got this lovely little bubble here that shows me that the task is actually assigned. And if I want to go through and view that task, I can go through and view it from this way. It'll take me through now to the tasks section, specifically looking at what I've just sent through to students. If there's a LMS I need to share it with, I can. As dates, I can edit a lot of the bits and pieces I just went through. I can edit and change. So none of that is locked out. So if I come back to the task section, then we've got an option up here in the top right-hand corner saying sample reports. If I can click on those, we can actually start to see what one of these reports is going to look like before it comes back by viewing our geography report. Annie, do you want to take us through this one quickly?
Yeah, I love the reports. Start with the monitor tab just underneath the heading, and that shows you what the students are doing minute by minute. So you have that live monitoring. And then you get to look at their responses in the Centre tab. So remember how we talked about before, you don't have to look at the students' responses because they compare them to a model answer, but you can. And it's a good way of keeping track and ensuring they're on track and making sure that they know you're still watching, you're still their teacher, you're still looking after them. Oh, that's a long student answer.
Ah, there you go.
And on the right-hand side there are 3 ways to give feedback to the students. And including, you can also require resubmission if they've written nothing. We head back. We can see the report section, which is where we get all the amazing data and being able to track student growth. We get a summary at the top, a little hazard triangle to show that there are some students the system's picked up and is concerned about. And then each individual student's progress for this section. So remember, we talked about the information section and the short answer questions. These are the different sections. And when you hover, you get to see how they've gone in each of those sections. If a student's got some questions wrong, that means they got it wrong, then the question went back in the queue to be answered again, and they got it right the next time, which gave them the green bar. And then we can look at all the question detail. So this would really, for me, highlight if there's a section the students aren't understanding, if there are lots of mistakes or low accuracy. So it's worth a quick look through to see if there's anything you need to go back to with the entire class. And that's
this is a great example, one where it's pulled together each of the common mistakes that might help us to address some things. I mean, eyeballing this, systems and infrastructure might be terms that are difficult for students to master, or they might be new in this context. That could give us an indication as to why this was such a tough one for them.
Absolutely. And it's such great feedback as a teacher to look at your next steps or to fill in some gaps. So the reporting is fantastic in Education Perfect. One of the best pieces of reporting is the student feedback right at the bottom. At the end of each lesson or task, they are asked to rate the lesson and to say how confident they feel with the material that was in the lesson. And so that student confidence is exactly their voice. It's an average of the class and how well they're doing. And in this case, they're very confident with the material.
So that is a great intro if you're new to the platform on some of the different features. The things we've looked at here have been going through our Discover tab to find our content, making sure we're filtering onto those different curriculums. We've looked at adding that to our courses. We've seen a bit of a sneak preview of our AI feedback tool. We've assigned some tasks and we looked at reporting. We can, of course, go more in depth with each of these. So reach out to EP, which you will find if you're in the platform, and come on down the bottom left to our support option. And we have a few different ways that we can help you here. But ultimately, we're here to help you. That is our job, and it's what we're passionate about as ex-teachers, trying to help our current teachers.
That's right. So take some time to find some exceptional content in the humanities for your students. Been nice chatting with you again, Ryan.
You too, Annie. I'll catch you next time.